So in today's War Thunder video, we're going to be doing more of a talking head video where we're going to be talking about War Thunder Infantry because I think it's the proper time to talk about it now, especially since the April Fool's event has been over for a little bit. And also, it's one of the biggest things that I've seen the War Thunder community and then also the gaming community talk about in a very, very long time. So if you do like these types of videos, remember to like and sub the channel. It's always very much appreciated. Thank you guys all for the support, and then also the members who support the channel monetarily, where they get to see the videos early. Thank you guys for all of that support. But first, let's talk about it. So what's quite insane about the War Thunder Infantry is that if you look at the trailer that they put out for April Fools, which is clearly an April Fool's joke, it actually went trending on YouTube, which in my opinion is quite insane because we only really ever see that for War Thunder of when they add stuff like the Tomcat or they add the F-16 or there's some crazy vehicle that we never expected to come to the game. Like I assume the next one for vehicle wise is probably going to be something with the super battleships like the Iowa and the Yamato, or maybe we'll even see it with the F-22 Raptor and the Su-57. Like that's the type of stuff that gets trending on YouTube, or at least War Thunder. But this time, it was over an April Fool's joke of infantry, which to me at least is quite funny. We even had gaming journalists like IGN and I think GameSpot, like a couple of them, I can't remember them off the top of my head, but they actually took the trailer and reposted it, and then also some of them talked about it officially in like some of their articles for an April Fool's joke, which is clearly an April Fool's joke. Now, I know some of you have probably seen that trailer, and some of you are probably still very, very, very skeptical of it. But there's some of you I know right now that are going to be saying, "Dog, that trailer was real. It is coming to War Thunder at some point. Gaijin has told me that they are working on infantry." I'm going to burst your bubble here. That was not the War Thunder engine, and it sadly is probably not going to come to War Thunder. If you think about it in this way, that's going to require like a whole engine overhaul just for that sort of thing to work. And if you looked in the trailer itself, there was a bunch of inaccuracies that War Thunder would not have if it was the War Thunder engine. So sad to say it, but like it's never going to be coming in as playable infantry. But we'll talk about it in this video when it comes to actually adding them as like AI or like supportive infantry, which I think could honestly actually be introduced into the game. But first, let's talk about that trailer that they released on April Fools with the modern day infantry, because it's interesting in its own right, and I feel like for a lot of people, they might actually be still happy about what might come from that trailer. And the thing that you guys need to know, and if you've not been noticing for quite a while now, past year or two now, Gaijin has been trying to become a game publisher instead of a game developer. They've been releasing different games like Age of Water. They're working on Active Matter right now, which is a Tarkov type clone with sci-fi elements to it. You have Enlisted, you have a Minecraft clone they're working on right now, and you have a ton of mobile games they're working on as well. And basically what they've been trying to do is become an Epic Games. Like they want to make themselves into a publisher instead of being into the game development side, because there's a lot more money to be made being a publisher than there is creating your own games. So they've been basically subbing out a lot of their like contracts, I guess. Let's just call it contracts, different game developers to make different games. And well, I feel like that's basically what we're looking at here when it comes to that April Fool's trailer of they're trying to copy Battlefield, or they're trying to make a Battlefield clone, which makes the most sense instead of completely changing the way War Thunder works right now and maybe even alienating a lot of the players from it. Just create a different game and then you make it into a Battlefield clone. So if you did not know, Battlefield has been doing very poorly the last like 5 years or so. Battlefield 2042 honestly was not the greatest game in the world. Battlefield 5 also was not the greatest, and the only Battlefield lately that's been decent, I would say, is Battlefield 1, but that game's incredibly old now for today's standards, and it's in an era, which is World War One, that honestly I would say is not really that popular either. So that's quite a bit of an issue for it. And the big thing that I feel like the gaming sphere, at least for FPS shooters, have been lately is the modern day type conflicts. Like if we look at it, right, if we look at like Call of Duty, or we look at like games like Battlefield, what have been their most successful games? Battlefield 4, Battlefield 3, Battlefield 2, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Modern Warfare 2. All of the games have been the most successful, or they're more modern day shooters. World War 2, sadly, and I know some of you guys are going to disagree, but sadly it's on the out. Like just statistically, if you look it up right now, there are less and less people that are getting into World War II, and they're getting more into like the Cold War, and they're getting more into those sort of engagements like Desert Storm, and they're getting into the modern day conflict and what could possibly come at some point, because that's what they grew up with. Like for me at least, I grew up with the History Channel. I grew up with that sort of thing where I watched crazy Battle of the Bulge videos or Stalingrad or different sort of things. Like we had the Guadalcanal. Like we had all kind of different stuff that you could learn about with World War II, and that's what I basically grew up on. But now it's mostly, I would say, video games is the first impression, at least for like kids, that they see like conflict. Like war is always going to be something that guys are interested into. But the difference is what you're exposed to is probably what you're going to be the most excited about. And I feel like that's probably going to be what the biggest thing that Gaijin does is that they create some sort of modern shooter that rivals Battlefield, that has some sort of realism elements to it. Like if you can actually combine the arcadeness of Battlefield plus add in like actual damage models when it comes to tanks, and they're not just bullet sponges with like HP and everything, and you have realistic damage and all that sort of stuff, and you kind of you make the game as realistic as possible while also being fun, that game will succeed. Like that's I feel like that's like a thing in the market right now that is just kind of missing. Like you do have your squad, you do have your hell let loose, and you have all that sort of stuff that is more of like a mill sim. You have Arma, you have all those types of games. But for that sort of game to work, you need it to be very player friendly of coming into it, while also feeling very realistic and also immersive. I feel like that's going to be a game that sees a lot of players actually go into and play it. But since this is a War Thunder channel, let's get over the soapbox of talking about some sort of like Battlefield clone that most likely will not know about for quite a while. Let's talk about infantry when it comes to the game itself. So we had the World War One event where we actually seen the infantry in action. They were in the trenches, they were throwing grenades, they were shooting at the tanks, they had the MGs, and I feel like that's probably what's going to come to War Thunder at some point, of where we have the AI infantry in the battlefields actually putting up some sort of maneuvers and everything, which I think honestly could be quite interesting. Now, I don't really think it's going to work extremely well, because if you think about it, right, I even said it during the April Fool's video that I made, the infantry just going to the trenches is a very simple concept. Now take infantry, that concept of infantry, and put it onto any War Thunder map that we have right now that wasn't that World War One mode, and where do they go? What do they do? Do they just go stand around like headless chickens, and then you just come up with your MG and you just MG them? Or Gaijin would have to like make them go into cover and everything. And I don't know, the trade-offs is one of those things that is kind of a little bit interesting. It's like if you push them up to capture points and everything, I feel like that could work, and you make them basically go to the same spot every time, hide behind buildings or find different cover they can get into and all that sort of stuff. But if you make the AI do their own little thing, they'll probably just run up and it'll stand there like headless chickens, which has basically been the War Thunder AI for quite a while. Honestly, in my opinion, the way that I see infantry coming into the game maybe will be something more or less that it's more of a cosmetic thing than it would be an actual gameplay element, because I know that, let's talk about this subject first. War Thunder is stale. I know a lot of you have been playing the game for a very long time. Some of you have been playing since 2013. Some of you have been playing since 2020. Majority of you have been playing this game for a very long time. What do you do every day? You log into the game, you get your daily login, you maybe will do the battle pass challenges or do some dailies and specials, or you may just play the game as normal and you go into a game and you capture a point, you shoot a tank, and then you go to the next one and do the exact same thing. The way that War Thunder actually feels different is playing a variety of nations and also tech trees, and playing different things like naval, playing all that sort of stuff. The thing that is kind of just sad about War Thunder is we're at a point now of there's just too much stuff. If you started the game today and you wanted to play everything within the tech tree, or within everything in every single tech tree, I think it's honestly almost impossible unless you can dedicate money or time, or an insane amount of time, to the game itself to actually grind out all that sort of stuff. I mean, think about it in this way, right? There's people who've been playing this game for 10, 11 years now that have not baited everything within the game, nor have they tried to get every single thing in the game. And then also, every single major update, they add at least like 10 to 15 new vehicles that you have to get to have everything spaded again. So that's almost impossible to do. So whenever I look at people's accounts and they've only played like one or two nations, I really don't blame them. But I do understand if you log into the game and let's just say that you only grinded America, you have America completely done, and that's the only nation that you play. You play the Abrams, or you play the Jumbos, or you play different sort of things like that. I can definitely see the game getting stale and boring. And that is quite of a problem, because The game itself is very simple. Like I said, you literally go into the game, you capture a point, you shoot an enemy. If you're playing ARB, you just like take off your runway, and then you go to the furball and you try to get as many kills as humanly possible. And then maybe if you're an A10, you shoot the ground targets. Or an IL-10, you shoot the ground targets, right? So the gameplay loop overall is so basic to almost anyone can understand it, and it's very easy to understand, and it's also very easy to do decently good in it. The thing that makes War Thunder special is basically the vehicles. Like, there's not a game where you can go from playing a main battle tank to some World War One like ship, or you can go play World War One tanks now. Like, there's not a single game that's like that in the world, and that's the thing that War Thunder has always done very, very well, is instead of improving the gameplay, they just added vehicles over and over and over. But infantry could possibly be that new thing that actually introduces some sort of new aspect to the game, which could actually make it quite fun. I mean, Gaijin can actually add infantry game modes or something like that, where you're having to protect your infantry, or you have like a convoy that has to go through the map, and you try to make it to where the enemy can't attack them as well. I mean, we've had this sort of thing tested in like World War mode, and probably this the place that would probably see infantry the most prevalent in. But I would really love to see infantry be put into the regular game in some sort of aspect. And like, I don't really care if it's like a cosmetic thing. Like, if it's just a more of immersion thing, I would be fine with it. If you just see a random battle happen, you know, like Kursk, for example, you see some enemy infantry throwing grenades at each other. I think that'd just be kind of cool. And if you MG them, you can get some like SL or something for it. You get a little bit of RP. Like, to me at least, that'd be the coolest thing that they could add to it. And I just don't know. I mean, what do you guys think? Put it in the comments if you can think of an idea that could actually work with infantry, because I've thought about it, right? I've thought about like capture the flag, or I've thought about like pushing the objective like an Overwatch type game mode, and I've thought about games where you have to play defensively and everything. The thing is that War Thunder kind of doesn't work in that sort of way, because the way that they've like made the game, it's more or less of like who has the most meta lineups, who has the most everything like that. And there's always going to be cheeses. Like, imagine if you have like a defense mode of where you have to defend your infantry from the incoming tank attack, right? And then here comes someone with like a napalm machine, and they just like bombard the whole infantry area with napalm, and then wow, you've lost the mode. Congratulations. Like, that, there's so many problems that would happen that you would have to just like kind of fix them in some sort of way. Like, there used to be this mode back around like 2 years ago that they tested, of where it was like a PvE mode, of where you basically took like 4 people, I think it was, and you tried to push the enemy, and it was just purely PvE. The problem around it is that there was like no communication through the teammates, and the way that War Thunder AI tanks work is you kind of have to bamboozle them in some way, where you kind of just show enough of your tank to where they shoot at you, and then you take one of your friendlies, and while they're occupied shooting at you, you come up and you shoot them while they're not looking at you, right? So that's the way that they do it, and it was kind of hard once you got into the sort of matches, and let's just say that like 2 guys died and they didn't want to play again, and there was only 2 people versus like a whole convoy of AI tanks and stuff. Like, it was almost like impossible to just win that. And the same thing happened with an actual game mode, which was PvP, which was the advanced game mode, which actually came out like 2 years ago, I think now, of where it was tested on a map, of where it was basically like kind of the rush game mode from like Battlefield, of where the capture point kept on going back, and you had a attacking team and you had a defensive team. The problem around that mode is that it snowballed like so bad, of where you had the attacking team get to the objective first, and then basically they get the first objective for free, and while you had people trying to defend that first objective, you would have someone in like a light tank that just went to the second one and started capping, and now you have an enemy which is behind you for the defensive team, and also one that's attacking you from the front, and it's kind of hard to change over to the next objective once you're already in combat with people. Like, if you move, you're going to get shot by them, and you'd have to respawn, and then the next objective would just be easily pushed by them. So it was a game mode that was heavily focused on the attackers winning. And well, you know what happens whenever people can push up into an enemy spawn. Well, you had people who just completely negated the first like point on the attacking team and went straight to the defensive spawn and just started spawn killing them. So while yes, the game mode was actually kind of interesting and maybe could have worked in some sort of aspect, it just wasn't great to play. I mean, you had so many abusive things that would happen with it. But honestly, I feel like infantry, with the way that War Thunder should do it first, is some sort of PvE stuff, whether it be like completely overhauling the assault game modes for ground forces, or you have a helicopter PvE, like that would probably be the best place to put it, because you could actually have infantry being gunned down by the machine guns from like an Apache or something, which I think would honestly be pretty cool. I mean, overall, I would really love to see it as a cosmetic thing. I mean, imagine instead of like waiting in the loading screen for the game, or you're waiting to spawn in, you can actually see the guys hopping into the tank, opening the hatches and getting in or something. Like, it could be insane about what they could actually add. I mean, they could add a thing where you can actually spawn infantry with IFEs or something like that. It's kind of slippery slope with that one though, because I wouldn't want IFEs to just become the end-all be-all type vehicles, because if you think about it, what can they do? They could spawn in like a Javelin, they could spawn in like a Stinger or a Strela, they could spawn in all kind of stuff like an RPG. Like, it would be quite insane if they just become like the master of all whenever it comes to their role within the game. So that'd be a bit of a slippery slope, but like a recon unit or something, like you could put them down, and then like a recon unit would scout people. I wouldn't really say it should scout for your team, but it could just scout for you to show that there's people coming this direction. I feel like that would be pretty cool to add to them. But the possibility of infantry within War Thunder is pretty much endless. Like, you could add them in so many different ways. You could add some of them just like working on the airfields. You could add them cosmetically. You can add them gameplay wise. Like, it's almost like almost hard to think about what War Thunder could do with them, and hopefully they do something with them, because it would be just cool to see. Like, I think that's overall the biggest thing. Playable infantry? No, never gonna happen. Never. And if I'm wrong by that, I guess you'd come back to this video in 2028 and tell me that I was wrong. They're like, all right, so here's what we do. If they add playable infantry at some point, you gotta come to this video and you gotta like be like, L dog, you're wrong, bozo. And then if I'm right and they just add them as AI and there's like a battlefield clone at some point, you come back to this video again, and then you're like, dog, you're right. You need to become a fortune teller at this point. But yeah, that's my overall opinion. This is my little TED talk whenever it comes to this. I know it might be a little bit rambly or something like that, but at the same time, unscripted. I just really wanted to talk about it while playing Naval. I've been playing Naval this whole time while talking with this video. So everyone has a wonderful day, and we'll see you guys in the next War Thunder video.